What's up, everyone? I'm here. We got a great guest today. We got Mr. Scott Legacy. He's the 2014 USA Today National Coach of the Year, the man who started the Mount Anthony dynasty, and most recently, the man at the helm of nationally ranked Castleton, Vermont. Mr. Legacy, how we doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Max. This should be fun.
Yeah, I'm real excited. Like I mentioned, you started the Mount Anthony dynasty. Castleton. You taken to new heights these past few years. So I'm very excited to pick your brain a little bit, and see how one of the greatest coaches in our region thinks.
A lot of years to pick.
Yeah. So let's go back all those years, back before when you were even a coach. When did you first find the sport of wrestling?
There's actually a lot of media out there on it, and someone wrote something on me. I was like, where did you get all that information? I don't even know who it was. I can't remember the report. But so about fifth, sixth grade, I was playing basketball. Heard a lot of similar stories like this. Went to wrestling practice, watched my younger brother. They kind of dragged me out on the mat reluctantly, and then I got involved with the sport. And the first couple of years I was not very good, so I think it was like fifth grade. Fifth and sixth were kind of rough, going to pee-wee tournaments, watching my brother. They were all day long ones back then with like 64-man brackets or person brackets, and he would win all the tournaments. My brother's name's Sean. And then in seventh grade, middle school started to change a little bit for me. In the eighth grade, I got pretty good, made the varsity as a freshman in high school, took third in the state, and then won 3 state titles and placed in New England twice. And
What high school was that?
Mount Anthony. I'm an alumni of Mount Anthony. So.
Of course. Nice.
And it's kind of weird how I ended up back there, but
was the team as dominant as it is now, and when you were coaching as it was back, or you know what I'm trying to say, right? Was it as dominant at your time back then?
Not really. So in my junior year, we won in 1980 the state tournament, and then my senior year in 1981, we won the New Englands. So that was Mount Anthony's first ever New England title. Either I wrestled or I coached all the New England championships at Mount Anthony.
Wow. And there's the most of any school, right? So
I don't know that for a fact. I know Timberlane.
Yeah, you guys are Timberlane.
Yeah.
So after a stellar high school career, you moved on to Morrisville State to wrestle for a couple of years, right?
Yes, I did. It was a junior college. We were really good. One of the top junior colleges in the country. I was captain of the team there. I did make the junior college nationals my second year. During that time, Delhi had like this huge win streak, which was the nation's longest among any college, whether it was Division I, II, or III of junior college. And we happened to beat them. I remember, I joke with them all the time, Mark Cody, who was once the Oklahoma coach, American coach and stuff. He was on that team with Delhi when we beat him. So, yeah.
Nice.
Every time I see him somewhere, I always remind him of that.
Oh, you have to. So, when was it in your time at college that you kind of dabbled into coaching or hosting clinics for the first time? Was that?
Yeah, so I transferred from Morrisville to Oswego, and I think it was my junior year. I came back to work out in the winter, and Mount Anthony was going through some transitions and things like that, and I ended up running a couple of practices for them as a wrestler. Nothing that I really wanted to do, but and then I started thinking about coaching, I guess more my senior year of college. I mean, I was student teaching, and it was just something that I wanted to do, and teach and coach. So, and originally I accepted a job, it's well documented, at Whitesboro High School in Utica, New York. I was planning on moving out there, and last moment, the Mount Anthony program was in trouble. It was getting ready to be shut down.
Wow.
The athletic director and the superintendent had a couple of parents come and ask me to go meet with the superintendent of schools, kind of like, you're not leaving, da 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 da. And lo and behold, I ended up staying back. I canceled my contract, got out of my room, and became the Mount Anthony coach. And I think had like a roster of 4 when we had original signups. They were all 4 returners, and built up to like, I don't know, maybe about 9 or 10 that first year, which was 1985-86 year. And that freshman group was the first one to win the first state title in 1989,
Wow.
which has been ever since.
So how old were you at the time when you took the position?
21.
21.
Yeah, I graduated high school at 17. I graduated college at 21. So yeah, I was young.
So
it's an adjustment.
Yeah, did you feel like any nervousness, being this young guy walking to the room, trying to save your high school program?
Like the first year of coaching was, I wouldn't call it nervous, but it was like doggy paddling. Like I wasn't sure. Like I knew what the goal was. I knew what people wanted. I know what the athletic director wanted, but I was still in transition from being a college student to being a teacher and a coach. And like I was still like wrestling all the time and not really coaching. And that first year was.
Were you thinking of grad school?
No. Like I didn't do grad school until about midway through my coaching career, but no, you didn't have to back then. So like at the end of that first year, I kind of took a hard look in the mirror and looked at myself and decided, like, if you want to be a really good coach, you want to develop these young men, you've got to change your ways. So like I was still like in that mode where I wanted to wrestle every go and all that kind of stuff. So I wasn't even watching my guys drill or anything. I was more into, I think the guys I was wrestling with were getting better, but not everybody else, for sure. 100%. I know that's what was going on.
So what do you think some of the biggest differences between the practices you first ran and, when everything clicked and, you realized you had to run things a little differently?
Well, it was after that first year and started doing some off season. I had to rebuild everything. So like we didn't have a youth program or really a middle school program. I was fortunate to get like my co-captain, one of my best friends, Eric Becker, involved. He was back home. My brother finished up college. He was back home. So I started pulling in all former Mount Anthony guys or people that I was surrounded with and kind of forming that network. And then it was like we got better year 2, year 3. We still didn't have a lot of depth. We had like 14 guys. We probably would have won a state title that year, but 2 guys got injured and we didn't.
You said 89 was the first, right?
Yeah. And then it was that first group. And then from there, it just exploded. The numbers were going nuts. Students, wrestling was becoming a thing. The off-season club was going year-round. Youth wrestling numbers went up to like 150 kids. And it was just our town. So.
And that's Bennington, right? The town?
Yes, it is.
Is it like a big town, big city? Is there a big group of kids to pull from, or?
One sec. So not really. It's a small blue-collar town. I don't know like the population back then, but it's one of the larger towns in Vermont, but that's not big.
That's not
20,000 or something like that. We're considered a Division I school. That means your graduating class is anywhere from 200 to 300 students, and we were like in that mid 250 range and stuff like that. So basketball was king. They were always very successful. The traditional sports, even though wrestling had success back when I was there, it was not like 3 or 4 years in, we took over like as the dominant sport, the sport of choice to come watch. And our crowd attendance was through the roof, stuff like that. Good athletes coming out.
And what do you think? What do you think were the biggest factors that got those good athletes to come out and participate in the sport?
Success.
Do you think they just
And
see
just
winning?
and a lot of promotion. Like I had a dog and pony show type thing that I took out. Like I spent a lot of time going to youth practices and meeting with kids after, asking the coach if I could talk to them. And even back then, I think like I'd bring a little black and white TV and a VHS and try to find a place to plug it in and show our matches and bring our wrestlers around. Doing that kind of stuff in the middle school, going to elementary schools, phys ed classes and stuff. And then, when you start winning, people start taking notice and they want to be a part of it. So we were getting, you know, the upper mid class, just it was a real diverse demographic of, of athletes, like wrestling is anyhow, but that's what we needed to have.
So in '89, when you won your first state title, were you expecting it, or was it somewhat a surprise?
No, we wanted to win. We expected to win. We knew we did all the work. That group of kids was like traveling all off season back then. Massachusetts had a freestyle and Greco series they ran every single weekend. A guy named Jeff Gore, Bobby Annabali, the native coach, and a lot of different people like that did that. We were traveling to both the Northeast juniors and cadet regionals, and our kids participated. They used to have two different tournaments. Like cadets would be out in Missouri, and the junior nationals would be at the Unidome in Iowa. And so, we were doing all that.
Yep. Mount Anthony has always been one of the teams that has traveled well, seeks tough competition. So I assume that was you that like kind of instilled that into the culture, or was that always there?
No, it was not there. So we were in like a New York State league. It was called the Washington County League that we got ourselves in. So we didn't wrestle in the Vermont League or the Southern Vermont or MBL. And we wrestled predominantly all New York State schools. And then from there, I think it was 1993 when we won our first New England title, we went to the original Ironman tournament, which the reason they called it that was back then you had to wrestle 8 matches. That's why it was called Ironman. And the first one that we went to, it was in Columbus, Ohio. And the teams that were there were like Calvary Chapel, California, Butte, Montana, like all that real big national powers. The top team from Hawaii, Walsh Jesuit and St. Ed's, like Vestavia Hills was the best team out of Alabama. And like whoever the top team from Pennsylvania was there, like the Nazareths and stuff. So I remember Joe Heskett and Jeff Knupp and those guys wrestling in the tournament back then. But we took 4th at that, and we put 5 guys in the finals. They all lost, but we ended up ranked nationally in the top 8 that year. So it so happens that year when we won the New Englands, we had 5 finalists, and which back then is kind of unheard of because the New England tournament was like follow the leader. It's not like it was now. So you had to win, and the guy that if you got beat, you had to hope that he made the semifinals. So
like with reppage
and
all that.
Yeah. So that's what kind of started it. And then from there, we went to like the original Beast of the East. We went out to Reno Tournament of Champions. Some of those tournaments were like flying us out, sponsoring us to go. We didn't wrestle in Vermont very much, or New England for that matter, to tell you the truth. It was mostly a New York schedule, and then like that schedule we just talked about on the national level. It was kind of crazy for a little rinky-dink school in Bennington, Vermont.
So who would you say throughout, all your time in Mount Anthony was the in-state team that gave you like the biggest, had you on the edge of your seat the most?
That changed from year to year, to tell you the truth. So it was dependent on who loaded up the most. So I really can't name one. The dominant, the teams that were always consistent were like Essex, Spalding, Mount Mansfield, and sometimes a little bit Otter Valley back then. But like it kind of like it changed from year to year. So like um, it seemed like, you know, we were always consistently where we were, and teams were like loading up that class to make that run at us,
Mhm. And
which
who?
was fun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, it's fun having a target on your back, kind of. You know.
Yeah, it just fueled the fire to be, you
Yeah.
know, I know some people say it's not fun with having it, but I think it's kind of cool. It was, you
Mhm.
know.
And so, when it comes to other New England teams out of state, out of Vermont, who do you say was your biggest challenger?
Timberlane,
Yeah.
on the New England level, it was just like us and them for a long time. And then Danbury was a big rival of ours. Like I think it was like, can't remember when we first started wrestling them. It might have been early
Yeah, the duel,
2000.
the
Yeah.
Mountain King duel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ricky
Oh,
Shook
one of
approached me
my
at the New
favorite games.
England and said, "Hey, we need to wrestle you." Like, and I guess they hadn't lost a duel in Connecticut for like
Yeah.
mega amount of years. So that's how that rivalry started. So, um, but on the New England level, it was definitely Timberlane. And then once in a while, someone might sneak in there between us, like a Lowell or, um, yeah, I can't remember. Pretty much, it might have been one or two teams, but it was like, it seemed like it was Timberlane and us back and forth every year.
Yeah, I mean, kind of was. So, you kind of already answered it, but all winning all these state championships, did it ever get boring?
No, it
Yeah.
was, you reset and have different challenges. Like there was times that we would graduate like 11 starters out of the 13 or 14 weight classes, depending on however many they were having that year. And we'd have to reload. Same thing on the New England level. So it was just about like, how can we maintain this? And so that's, and it's not being complacent at all, obviously, you know, like going after the next one and challenging the next group, that kind of thing.
hmm So, over the course of your tenure in Mount Anthony and just in New England, how did you see wrestling evolve over the many years?
You know, it's kind of funny to look at where it is now, obviously, but it was just more New England kids wrestling year round. The club started like, I think we were one of the very first teams to have a club. I can remember when we established Catamount and Frank Popolizio came up, and there was no journeyman right then, but he kind of saw, we were over a carpet warehouse. Carmen Kalachi came up, and next thing I know, after that, there's like Wadsworth Wrestling Club and stuff. And then, so like, I can't even remember how we got the idea for a club. We were talking to people when we were traveling. And so from there, we were more of a region back then when we did like freestyle and Greco. I can remember Dave Kemi used to hold events down at Roger Williams College. He used to be the Mount Hope coach or Bristol coach, and then he went on to Roger Williams. And then there was a lot of freestyle and Greco events and training camps down there. And then it just kept expanding to what it is now. It's like, it's crazy. That's why New England's good. I mean, there's so much competition and people are training year round. There wasn't as much as that. Like there was, it's everybody's looking for the next level now, and not just like on the national level, but world level.
So, and throughout your whole coaching career in general, you received many awards. Which one means the most to you? That you've received.
Jeez, I can't. It's weird. I don't know. You mentioned the 2014 Coach of the Year award. I'm actually a 4-time National High School Coach of the Year by different organizations.
Really?
I thought it was pretty cool, which I didn't know what people were talking about when they called me up and said I was named Max Prep's all-time best high school coach ever in Vermont for all sports.
Wow.
And
That's an honor. Max Preps is pretty legit.
And then coaching like the 2014 Cliff Keen USA Classic Dream Team, where I was the head coach and I got to like coach athletes like Zane Rutherford, Jason Knopf, Bull Nickel, all those kind of guys were on the team. That was a big highlight, like running practices with them, going out to dinner with them and their families. That's something that I'll never forget. But it's hard to like pick one that stands out more because everyone had its own meaning and had kids that got you there. You really, like when I get named head coach of the year or something like that, it's because of my support staff, the people I have around me, all my assistant coaches and the athletes you have. So I kind of think of it as I'm just the guy that gets the award presented to me, but I have a lot of people that bought into the system. But yeah, some of those were highlights. I remember the first one in 1996. My wife and I got flown to Louisville, Kentucky, and then they had all the sports there. So like there was a big banquet, and I got to meet like the National High School Boys Coach of the Year and women's and hockey and stuff like that. That was a pretty cool experience.
That is cool. So around what time did the Castleton position come up? Yeah, going right into it now.
Yeah.
No transition.
Have you done any research on it?
A little bit.
So it's over the years I had different opportunities to coach college at different levels.
I imagine. I bet people were crawling, like begging for you at some points.
Yeah, and so like I just it was kind of I traveled the country doing camps. I'd be out in Minnesota doing things and with high-level high school coaches or wrestling coaches, and so it was really weird. Like I got a call from the president of the college, David Walk, back then. It was 2016, like in the fall. And he said, hey, I'd like to talk to you about starting a college wrestling program up here. And would you come up and like speak to us in an advisory position? I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds pretty cool. And he set a date, but like I was training my guys. Like the thing about Mount Anthony is our kids would wrestle year round. It would just be our kids. We didn't have to have like a barn or anything like that. It was our group of kids, and we had a lot of them. And I had like 30 kids just from Mount Anthony that were going to go to the Super 32s. And we just come off one of the journeyman events, the Fall Classic that they always have. So I blew them off. I didn't go. And so then I got an email from his secretary asking to reschedule and that he would really want to meet with me. So I did, and I finally made it up there. I didn't tell my wife I was going up to meet. I just went up one day after school, and it turned into, like, in the first 5 minutes, he offered me a job, and I told him I wasn't interested in it. And he offered it to me again. I kept telling him I was good. I'm going to retire, from teaching at Mount Anthony. I'll probably stay coaching. Like he knew how many years I had before I was going to retire, like where I could get early retirement. He had all that information. Kind of still told him I wasn't interested. He walked me around campus. People didn't know I was there. Cool. I met people and it was really cool. They were nice. We got back to his office. He said, what do you think? I said, great place. It's so beautiful up here. And, the last time I've been on Castleton campus, it didn't look like this. It was years and years ago. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm just not interested. And then we talked a part-time salary, and they gave me like 48 hours aside. I talked to my wife. She encouraged me to do it, like to take the next challenge. Like, look at this. You can go to a little school in Vermont that nobody knows anything about and do kind of like what you did at MAU, like start from scratch almost. And, I have 4 kids, but like start with nothing and build it. And so I accepted the position. And then after that, I met the athletic director. It was supposed to be very quiet because I wanted my team to focus on the season. A few students from Mount Anthony saw me walking around campus. The rumor was out there that there was going to be a wrestling
Oh man,
program.
are you
Next thing
walking
I
around
know,
campus?
yeah, like I didn't know that the rumor was out there. Like, so I went up to meet the AD and stuff, up here to meet the AD. From there, my wife contacted me and said, like, I wanted my season to be about my team and last season. And she's like, you need to talk to the administration here at Mount Anthony and your team because you're all over like social media. Like, there's pictures out there. I was like, okay. So we went from there. I coached my last year. First kid I had on campus was in March of let's see, accepted that. Was it 2015 I accepted. 2016 was the spring. And yeah, we brought in 34 guys that first year.
And you mentioned that you wanted to do it because it's another challenge. So is that something you've always been inclined to do? You like challenges?
Yeah, like the little train that can do it type thing. So yeah, it was like I always wanted to leave Mount Anthony in a really good spot, like with the cupboards full, not bare. So I did that for sure. That next year, actually, Samson Wilkins was a freshman that year. I had been coaching him all the way up until 8th grade, and along with other coaches and his coach that ended up being his coach, Brian Kuhn. But yeah, so that was always a goal, not to leave anything bare, like not like, oh, the ship sinks then you bail. I didn't want to do that. And then yeah, it was like I thought that we could do good things here, and I wanted to see if I could. And what did I have to lose?
Exactly. You definitely left the cupboards full of Mount Anthony. It seems they're doing pretty all right, without you. It seems they've had some tougher competition, but that's just because the wrestling is increasing everywhere, in Vermont,
Mm-hmm.
But so what was the emotions when you first took the job? Was it like you said, you're back to building something. So is it back to how you felt when you were 21 years old, walking to the Mount Anthony room as a coach?
Well, the first year was again an adjustment period.
Yeah.
So like you've got to learn that the college season is longer, much different. Now I'm back to where at MAU, I knew all the kids from like if they started when they were 5, or if they started in junior high, or if they started in high school, because it's a community. Now I'm getting kids from all over the place. I don't really know what they're about, they're about. And at the beginning, like you're searching for talent and stuff. So it was more like feeling like you were in Disney World at the beginning, like everything was kind of fun and you were developing a program and the expectations aren't real high. And then as I got engaged in it and got through the first year and we started getting our coaching staff together, yeah, it set in. It was like that burning desire to be really good again and like work our butt off to get there. Like, don't set any limits, in front of yourself. So like, you don't have the best wrestling room in the world. It doesn't matter. You have a wrestling mat. Like, we have things that other people don't have, those kind of things, and not like taking all the excuses away to be able to become a program. Like even the fact that like people don't really, people asking you what state Vermont's in when you're recruiting them.
What state Vermont's in?
Like, yeah, we are a state. Look, you're talking to a Jersey kid. Like, I don't remember. They have wrestling up there.
Oh man, a Jersey.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those things happen for real. Yeah.
Yeah, was it tough recruiting that first year, trying to sell, as you or your wife said, the rinky-dink school in Vermont that first year?
The first year wasn't that because of my reputation from high school. So like Zach Hale, who wrestled for me in high school, was a 3-time Division II qualifier, transferred in. And then Jared Costa, Manny's son, was at that same school, and fortunately, because Manny knew me and Jared swung in, and then we had some guys like that. So like getting a little bit of a foundation wasn't all that hard based on reputation. It was like trying to find a full lineup of those kind of kids that lived wrestling all the time, and so that was really challenging. And then developing a culture with it, like I know everybody uses the word culture, and it's kind of like maybe overrated, but it's real. Like you got to find students that fit your campus and your like your educational goals, like the school and the location that we're in, we're not a school with like downtown bars or anything like that. So if that's something you're looking at, we're not the place. Like we have a regular college life. We have 29 sports on campus, which is more than others. We have football and they have tailgating and stuff, but it's like more of a real tight-knit college community, a safe piece of land. It's really pretty, surrounded by lakes. And then you can drive 15 miles down the road to Rutland, where it's a much different scene. But yeah, it's like finding those kids that fit what you're all about, and that they're, engaged academically first, and then wrestling is like academics is an A, wrestling is an A minus, and then that social life after that. So, because we don't have all the, like, we're not like a Providence or a Springfield, Mass or whatever like that. So you got to find those kids that are willing to buy into that.
Scott, I don't mean to. Do you see if there's a time left thing in the top left of the screen? Or I don't know if
it says 3.
Yeah, I don't have Zoom Premium, so are we able to end this meeting and then it take 10 minutes to before I start another one, because I have to wait, and then we could finish this? Yeah,
it's totally up to you. Whatever you want to do.
Perfect.
The time is yours. I appreciate you having us on. So.
Of course. I'll send you another email.
Okay.
And biggest questions I have for you is what are the differences, like the biggest differences between running a successful high school program and running a successful college program?
That's a good question.
And I guess also, what are the similarities? Like what carries over?
I think the similarities is you've got to develop relationships with your kids and get them to trust you. That's huge. And that you stay consistent. You treat all wrestlers the same, whether they're 0-40 or 40-0. That everybody has an importance to your program, whether you're the team manager, a fourth or fifth string wrestler, or the star. So that's something that I've always tried to stay even keel with and level with, and make sure that my coaching staff understands that too, that you're only as good as the guy above you or beneath you, and everybody else on the team. So those are the similarities. Differences, maturity level, obviously, a little bit. So like, at Bennington, at Mount Anthony, I believed in the K through 12 system. So I was involved in the youth. I was involved in the middle school. I would go to their practices, and high school. And then obviously I was dealing with high school kids. So their families are around a lot more. They can lean on them more. They have their parents for weight reasons, diet, nutrition, dieting, all that kind of stuff, or just moral support a lot more. And then in college, they're relying on you. They're relying on you as the coach. I think in both instances, I found myself being a second parent. So like in high school and this, but and then I think most of the wrestlers in college are there because they want to be there. You're still going to have some that want to be on the team to be part of the team, but then like you've got to learn to make that next jump. Like, hey, it's okay to be wearing our colors, but like if you're not going to be working at it, maybe this isn't the place for you to be. And that's a hard separation to to make as a coach, like if you want to get to that next level. But uh, and then like really developing relationships with kids you don't know a lot about, like like
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, you meet most of these kids for the first time.
yeah, single family parent or not, like is it divorced, did they coming from two different families, like you know um, what was their background like,
Hmm.
trying to find out how they were in high school, maybe connecting with their high school coach, those kind of things. And then like finding out what makes them tick, like how am I going to motivate that kid? That's a huge challenge because when I was in high school, like I knew like a kid coming up from the middle school or whatever. I was kind of in tune with what was going on and what their family life was like. Now you're trying to get to know them over the phone or through social media or texting or whatever their form of communication is to be able to relate to them when they step foot on campus the first time.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, it's definitely a different ball game.
Yeah, and it was hard, like making those adjustments are I've always felt like as an educator, like when I started teaching, it kept changing, it kept changing and coaching. And, like one of the things that I've stayed consistent with, whether it was high school or college, I don't believe in long, lengthy practices. I don't believe in ever going past an hour and a half, but most of our practices are like an hour and 15 minutes. And the kids that I have coming in from different high schools around the country are used to the 2.5 hour practice.
Yeah, going
Like,
hard, 2 hours.
yeah, they kind of like this and they like the adjustment. They like the fact that they still have energy to get their extra drills in or studying and that kind of stuff. But those are some of the things I've stayed consistent with. And then you mentioned our competition schedule on high school level, like our college schedules amped up every single year. So
Yeah.
not being afraid to lose, not being afraid to wrestle the best, not worrying if you lose, if it's going to affect your recruiting. I'm big about that. Like, like just trying to wrestle the best to get to where you need to be at the regional time. We set three things: the Futures Championship, that's really important to us. I think that's huge. The regionals, and then the national tournament.
Hmm. And you mentioned your practices, just like hour 15 minutes. So what do you do within that? Well, like, what does a Castleton practice look like? How do you guys prepare for those big three events?
If you were to ask our guys, they would tell you that our practice is never the same. I've always been like that. I'm not like this routine type guy. Maybe the only thing that might be routine is um, the warm up if the guys are running it, but they like it when I take over because they don't know what's going to happen either. So I kind of like it. I get a feel for it. I get a feel for where we're at during the season, maybe what we're coming off for competition. And, I could do conditioning right at the beginning of practice and then technique and live wrestling, or we might warm up, wrestle live, and then technique and conditioning, or just all technique. Like I think you have to get a feel for where your team's at and be able to make adjustments. Cause like you don't, even in high school, you never know what that kid's day's like or this and that, or what your team, you got to get a feel for like how your team's feeling. And sometimes I know that wrestlers are very routine, but sometimes practice routines are boring. So I like to mix it up all the time, and they never know what's happening. And sometimes I don't know up until 5 minutes before. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, whatever pops into your head.
Yeah. So, and I've been doing it long enough. It's kind of worked. I'm sure there's a better system, but yeah, that's kind of how we do things here.
If it's not broke, don't fix it,
I hope it's not broke.
Seems like it is.
Yeah.
So, behind every great head coach, there's an assistant coach. So who are your assistants over at Castleton?
So behind every great coach, most is a wife.
Yeah, that's true.
Kelly Legacy's been great. My family, my son Scott, who's volunteering a little bit at Mount Anthony now, and my daughter Amber. So like I was fortunate; they've sacrificed a lot. Like I'm going into my 40th year next year, so Longevity comes from them, and it's not easy. But at Castleton, you're right. Like, and even at Mount Anthony, it's great assistance. So, like, I have Joe Duca, who is originally from New Jersey. He's a state trooper here in town. He was an Ithaca grad. He was a three-time national qualifier. He was an All-American. He was a Scholar All-American. And he's a rock. Then Stephen Forrest, who wrestled for me in high school. He was a three-time state champion, a two-time New England champion. He was second in the country. He wrestled in the Dapper Dan against Greg Jones. He went on to be second in the U.S. Opens and second in the World Team Trials in Greco. So wrestling out of the Marines. Our grad assistant this year is leaving at the end of this week. David Kirker came from USM. He's done an outstanding job. We have Jesse Webb, who wrestled for me in high school, who was all world in high school. He was a four-time state champ, four-time New England champ, or four-time New England place finisher, two-time New England champ, two-time NHSCA champ, Super 32 champ, Super 32 finalist, Ergo finalist, both styles. And he works with our heavyweights and our upper weights. His teammate that wrestled behind him, Mason Osborne, is a Castleton graduate. And he teaches at Mount Anthony now, so he's one of our assistants. Max Temple, who graduated from here, and was a national qualifier, is one of our another one of our assistants.
Yeah, so he was a 100-win guy, I believe.
Yeah, yes, he was, and he was the last guy to beat Nate Lockman, Division III there. COVID. Yeah, that was a big win, and it's too bad he didn't get to wrestle in the NWCA championships that year and stuff. But Jeff Whitesell, who's been with me from Mount Anthony, came up and he runs the Youth New Englands and all that. And he's huge in recruiting and like all our little tournaments and camps and clinics. He's helps me organize all those kind of people. And then I have managers and, like that stay around and hang around. We have, so we're fortunate that everybody's bought in. So you hit the nail on the head there. It takes
a village.
Yeah, it does.
Man, it seems like there's a pretty good one over at Castleton, or a hard working one at least,
Yeah, we are. We're working hard all the time at it. So
and that's shown, because since you took over the program, you guys have basically improved every year, right? Essentially. So how do you kind of keep everyone, the wrestlers, the staff, the head, how do you keep everyone's head focused, eyes on the prize, taking a step every year?
Yeah. So we're very fortunate that our administration is back in wrestling here. And even now we don't, all our COVID guys are staying except for one, and that's 9 of them are staying. We return 9 of 10 starters next year. So they're good at making sure that our kids get to wrestle and go to multiple events on the same day. And then the question was keeping your eye on the prize. So
yeah, like to keep improving every year, to so much not be content with where you're at.
Yeah. Well, we haven't won a regional title yet, so that's a goal.
Right.
We haven't brought home an NCAA team trophy yet, so that's a goal. We had 2 All-Americans this year, so next year we want to up that to get 3 or 4 or 5. We will have 5 qualifiers last year, 6 this year, so there's another goal next year. So there's always something to be searching for and better yourself with, and it's major discussions. We do a lot of mindset training around it as a team. We spend like during the season, once a week, just sitting down and doing mindset training and like culture circles, talking with each other, sharing intimate information, and then turning that into wrestling goals. How can we parlay this into being a better version of ourselves in all areas, which ultimately is on a wrestling mat, to life skills.
Yeah, and that kind of goes along with everyone getting to know each other, the family aspect, everyone growing together too, those circles and stuff.
Yeah, we're a big community service team. Like we do a lot of that kind of stuff together that allows us to be together outside of the wrestling arena, whether it's youth clinics or working the Spartan race at Castleton Mountain for a whole weekend or doing campus um, chores, laying mulch, stuff like that. So like those kind of things allow you to be with each other outside of the wrestling arena also.
Good. So Scott, what does it mean to you to, be a very successful high school wrestler yourself in Vermont from Mount Anthony, become the coach of Mount Anthony, become, arguably one of the most successful high school coaches in the country, and now still in Vermont at the college level, carrying over the success. Like you said, five qualifiers to six qualifiers this year, two All-Americans. You guys are, I believe, consistently ranked in the top 25 the past couple of years, right?
Yes.
But, what does that mean to, be doing all this in Vermont too? One of the states that, like, I don't want to be disrespectful, but if New England is overlooked, Vermont is one of the more overlooked states.
Yeah, Vermont knows where they lie on the high school landscape, and they got to keep working harder at it right now. And we at Castleton are trying to provide and help with that too. We see that as part of what we're trying to do is better wrestling in Vermont. But doing it here, I don't know. Do you follow D3 wrestling much at all? Like, do you know, like the Osberg program, the assistant coach used to be the head coach. Like, so like he stepped down and made Tony Valley. He's a really cool guy. And I think this sums it up best. We were at the Citrus Invitational, our first year we went down there, and we were like in second place behind them, right? And he walked up to me and he goes, like, what part of Pennsylvania are you guys from? And I was like, what? We're a college wrestling team, right? And back then we were Castleton University. We're now Vermont State University at Castleton. So I'm like, we're from Vermont. And he goes, no, you're too good to be from Vermont. He goes, and I go, no, we really are. And he goes, there's college wrestling teams in Vermont? I'm like, yeah, there's two. There's Norwich and us and everything. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yes. So, we finished second behind them. And that 2 weeks later, we saw them at the national duels. And he said, you guys are from Vermont. And that right there kind of says it all. Like, we are putting Castleton on the map. Mm-hmm. In Vermont, but on a national level. And that feels really good. Like, and our administration has noticed that. We were very lucky to have our athletic director and SID at the regionals, and they both went out to the national tournament this year at Wisconsin lacrosse. And not a lot of programs have that going on, and we were fortunate to have that. So, it's just like you kind of sit back and, say I'm living the dream, and you kind of shake your head at it sometimes.
It's good. So, when it comes to recruiting time and such, what is it that you look for in kids when you're looking for kids that you want to come to Castleton? What kind of qualities do you look at?
The first thing is that the kid doesn't need the big city life or that type of atmosphere. That that they understand there's not going to be all that kind of down extracurricular type stuff. So there's no happy hours to go to or anything like that. There's not like a college scene like at Ithaca or Cortland State downtown or that type of thing. And if they're okay with that, then we can start talking about, the visit. Like, try to be upfront with kids right away. I don't try to get them on campus without letting them know what we're all about, what our area is about and stuff. And that they love wrestling. And they don't have to be a blue chipper with me. I still believe in developing kids. So, I can use Nick Rager, our 165 pounder that qualified for the Nationals this year. He came in as a freshman. He was our fifth string 125. He was a two-time New Hampshire state champion at 113. never placed in New England. And he ended up being a 3-year starter for us, a couple of years at 149, and then this year at 65. So like that kid that loves wrestling, that wants to grind, and um, they're not afraid to take the next step, whether they're already accoladed or not. They don't have an ego. They don't have a chip on their shoulder that they can give to the program, and they're still coachable. And there's a lot of different various questions that you ask kids to try to figure that out. And there's times that I can actually look at a kid and say, I don't think we're a fit for you, and just be honest with them. So, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I just know that I think I'm doing it what maybe fits us. I think everybody has a different way of doing things.
Yeah. And when you're talking to kids selling the school, what is it you're telling them that Castleton has to offer?
Well, the truth. Really. So we have very small classroom sizes. It's very intimate education. You're going to get to know your professors by their first name. They know if you're not in class, you can't miss class here. That we have a great career office. Among state schools, we've been placed really high for job placement rate, which is all true. So that your education is going to come first. And that leads, if you're doing well educationally, then you're going to like wrestling. You're going to like your surroundings and that kind of stuff, that they all kind of link together. So you can, if you're doing poor academically, you're probably not doing the things you need to do on the mat. You're probably not really happy. So yeah, we kind of just, tell them the truth. And when they come on campus for a visit, nothing's scripted. We just do a visit. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, Scott, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about or touch on?
No, I just think, not to, why do you do this?
Why do I do
the answer? So, yeah.
Dude, wrestling's just so overlooked. Kids work so hard. Everyone works so hard. Coaches, and honestly, part of the reason is too, I was never that good in high school. So I want to stay with the sport, keep track of these good kids that deserve the praise that they don't often get. Follow these overlooked programs, in D3 or even just D1, just because they're overlooked, just because they're wrestling, and give them the credit and coverage they deserve,
So I've watched you at a lot of these events, and I've seen you establish relationships with some of the high school kids, and they seem to like being around you. I think you do it because you love this and you have a passion for it.
Yeah, that's also
definitely not getting rich by this. So what you're doing for all of us promoting wrestling is just incredible, and you're passionate. That's my answer about this sport.
Yeah, that's the one word answer that describes it all, basically.
No, thank you very much for everything. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's incredible. And you said you weren't a great wrestler. Well, you certainly have one of the biggest names in New England by giving back to wrestling right now.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.